In the MotoGP paddock, there is one name that always commands attention both on track and behind the scenes. Marc Marquez, a 7-time Premier Class world champion, is the figure most talked about, most imitated, and most feared by his rivals. But the question that truly intrigues is, what do the other riders actually think of him? The answer might surprise you, not because they hate him, although some have done in the past, not because they underestimate him, because nobody dares to do that. The answer is, they acknowledge that he operates at a level they simply cannot reach. As revealed by renowned MotoGP commentator Matt Burt on the Motorsport Republica podcast, what sets Marc apart from the rest is that when you speak to other riders, nobody knows better than they do about his extraordinary talent. They study his telemetry data, they compare braking points, lean angles, and acceleration, and they all arrive at the same conclusion. Burt recounted his years of interviewing top-tier riders. He heard directly from them honest admissions about their limitations in the face of Marquez. This isn't mere pleasantry or diplomatic praise. It's an admission born from data, from direct on-track experience, and from comparisons that cannot be disputed. Imagine being a MotoGP rider. You are a world champion. You have won Grand Prix races. You know you are one of the best on the planet. Then you look at Marc Marquez's data. What do you see? You see impossible braking, extreme lean angles, and front tire management operating at the very edge of physical limits. You see a rider doing things that, in theory, should not be possible. And then you have to admit something incredibly difficult to acknowledge. I cannot do that. Matt Burt spoke about interviewing top riders who told him, I see the data, I see what he does on track, and I can't do that. I cannot do what that man does. They try and they crash. They try and they run wide. They try and they lose control. These aren't novice riders speaking. These are Grand Prix winners. These are world champions. They are admitting their limitations in the face of Marquez. Imagine that moment. You are Jorge Lorenzo, 3-time world champion, and you look at Marquez's data. You see how he brakes 20 meters later than you, how he carries speed through corners in ways that defy logic, how he gets on the throttle earlier than anyone, and you must accept that you cannot replicate it. Or imagine you are Valentino Rossi, a living legend, and you realize that this young rider is doing things you never imagined could be done on a motorcycle. Rossi, with all his experience and talent, had to acknowledge that there is a level above his own. This is what makes Marquez so special. He doesn't just beat his rivals, he makes them realize they could never beat him by playing his game. They must find other ways, other strategies, because if they try to copy Marquez, they will crash. One of the most candid comments about Marquez came from his own Honda teammate, Crutchlow. The British rider, known for his honest speaking style, made no secret of his admiration. Marc is an incredible person. People don't realize how special Marc is. He's a freak of nature, said Crutchlow, who was Marquez's teammate from 2015 to 2020. The term freak of nature is not an insult. In this context, it is an admission that Marquez possesses talent beyond ordinary human categorization. He does things that cannot be explained by physics or logic. Crutchlow witnessed firsthand how Marquez operates. He saw how Marquez could save a bike that was already crashing, something he often did with his knee or elbow scraping the tarmac. He saw how Marquez could brake at points that other riders would never dare attempt. He saw how Marquez could race on completely worn tires and still set competitive lap times. And Crutchlow realized that what he does cannot be learned, it is innate talent. I think what makes him so special is his ability to sense the limit. Crutchlow said in another interview, "Most of us approach the limit and think, okay, that's enough." Marc approaches the limit, goes past it, crashes, and then says, right, now I know where the limit is. And then he goes back out and rides just below that limit. It's a very different approach. Crutchlow also highlighted how Marquez learns from his mistakes at an astonishing speed. He can crash at one corner in a practice session, and at the same corner in the next session he'll go even faster. He processes information at a rate I cannot comprehend. For Crutchlow, who is himself a highly respected rider in the paddock, this admission doesn't come from a place of insecurity, it comes from years of direct observation. He saw Marquez from the closest possible distance, in the same garage, with the same data, on the same bike, and he reached an undeniable conclusion: Marquez is different. One of the most striking admissions came from Fabio Quartararo, the 2021 world champion. In an interview with the YouTube channel 2J's, Quartararo drew a clear distinction between his idol and the best rider he has ever witnessed. "My idol has always been Valentino Rossi," said Quartararo. However, he continued with a statement that surprised many. "But as much as I love Valentino, for me, Marc Marquez is the best in history. He has fewer titles, but for me, he is the best since he arrived in MotoGP until today." This statement is significant because it comes from a rider who personally idolizes Rossi, Marquez's greatest rival. Yet Quartararo can separate personal admiration from technical evaluation. He acknowledges that while Rossi is his hero, Marquez is objectively the best. Quartararo highlighted Marquez's versatility and aggression as qualities that place him above all other riders. He is the strongest in the wet, in the dry. He is fast in every condition. You wonder how his aggression is possible. When you watch him, he looks like he's going 1.5 seconds faster than you. Quartararo, known for his smooth and efficient riding style, admitted he cannot replicate Marquez's aggression. "I try to be more aggressive like him, but it doesn't work for me. My style is different. I have to find my own way to be fast." This admission shows Quartararo's maturity as a rider. He isn't trying to become Marquez, he's trying to become the best version of himself, but he still acknowledges that Marquez is the best. "I think what makes Marquez so special is his ability to adapt," said Quartararo. "He can win at every track, in every condition, with any problem that might arise. He is the most complete rider I have ever seen." It's not just active riders who acknowledge Marquez's brilliance. Legends from previous eras share the same view. Mick Doohan, 5-time 500 cubic centimeters world champion in the 1990s, paid Marquez the highest compliment. Doohan himself is a rider who came back from a horrific injury to achieve success, a journey similar to Marquez's. "Marc's talent is at a level that has never been seen before, I believe," said Doohan. Doohan highlighted one aspect that makes Marquez truly unique: his courage to push beyond the limit. What he has achieved and how committed he is. I mean, he's not afraid to crash. Everyone tries to stay on that fine line and remain below it, rather than being on that line and going over it. Marc goes over the line and says, "Okay, that's where the line is." For me, he's a different breed. This is the fundamental difference between Marquez and other riders. Most riders try to approach the limit without crossing it. Marquez actually crosses the limit to find where it is, and then he learns to control it. Doohan, who was also known for his aggressive riding style in his era, sees similarities between himself and Marquez, but he acknowledges that Marquez has taken it to another level. I think what makes Marquez so special is that he is never satisfied. He is always looking for more, always trying new things, always pushing harder. That is a rare quality, even among the best riders. Doohan also noted how Marquez has overcome injury. "I had an injury that nearly ended my career, and I know how hard it is to come back." Marquez had an even worse injury, and he came back and won again. That shows remarkable character. Casey Stoner, a 2-time world champion renowned for his extraordinary natural riding ability, also offered his perspective on Marquez. "Marc is incredible," said Stoner. "He is so fast and nobody can get close to his reaction times." Stoner, considered one of the most naturally talented riders in MotoGP history, acknowledged that Marquez has reaction speeds that nobody can match. "I think what makes him so special is his ability to react to changing situations at incredible speed. When the bike starts moving, most of us have already lost control. Marquez somehow manages to save it." But Stoner also highlighted another aspect that makes Marquez special: his intelligence. When you get to the heart of the matter, he is a very intelligent person. That's why he's so good at battling with others and why he's so calm in most situations. Stoner, known as a highly analytical rider, appreciates Marquez's racecraft intelligence. He knows when to attack, when to defend, when to take risks. That's race intelligence that cannot be taught. Stoner also revealed what gives Marquez his dominance. "I think what helps him dominate is his ability to understand what the rear tire needs. While everyone else relies on traction control, he rides slightly ahead of it. That's the old school sensibility from before TC cut in, and that's something that really sets him apart." This is an extraordinary admission from a rider renowned for his ability to read tires. Stoner says Marquez doesn't rely on electronics, he relies on instinct, like riders from the pre-traction control era. Marc has an incredible feel for the tires. He knows exactly when to push and when to hold back. That's a natural gift that cannot be learned. However, the most intriguing part of Stoner's comments was his admission that Marquez once had a weakness, but nobody could take advantage of it. In the past, Marc had a weak point that I don't think anyone noticed, and it's something I won't reveal. I was, however, surprised that nobody could exploit it, and they just accepted that he was a tough rival. This statement is deeply mysterious. Stoner claims to know Marquez's weakness, but he won't reveal it. And what's even more surprising, no other rider spotted it. What was that weakness? We may never know, but one thing is clear. Even when Marquez had a weakness, his rivals couldn't exploit it. They were too busy trying to survive his pace to look for chinks in his armor. Stoner also compared Marquez to Max Verstappen in F1. He knows how to manage the tires well, a bit like Max Verstappen in F1. After a pit stop, the Dutch rider waits a few laps before reaching his full speed. This gives him an extra 10 or 15 laps at the end. This comparison shows that Stoner sees similarities between two dominant riders of their respective eras. Both have an extraordinary ability to manage tires, allowing them to dominate at the end of races when rivals are losing grip. Marc has incredible patience in managing a race. He knows when to push and when to hold back. That's a quality that makes him so difficult to beat. From the new generation of MotoGP riders, Pedro Acosta is one of the most vocal in his praise of Marquez. Acosta, who will join Ducati in 2027, doesn't hide his admiration. Acosta has previously said that Marquez is the best rider in history, and that even if I lose to him in a title fight, I would still be proud. This statement is remarkable because it comes from a young rider considered one of the greatest talents of the next generation. Acosta has no reason to diminish himself in front of Marquez, yet he chooses to acknowledge his greatness. For Acosta, what is most inspiring is not just Marquez's speed, but his journey back from injury. Marquez nearly lost his career after a horrific arm injury in 2020. Many thought he would never return to his best level, yet he proved everyone wrong by winning his 7th world title in 2025. When I see what Marc did after his injury, it's something extraordinary, said Acosta. Many people would have given up. Many people would have said, I've had enough. But Marc never gave up. He kept fighting, kept working, and eventually returned to the top. That's an inspiration to everyone. Acosta sees Marquez as a role model for what can be achieved through hard work and determination. This is a very different view from the previous generation, who often saw Marquez as an antagonist. I think my generation sees Marc differently from the previous generation, said Acosta. We see him as an example of what's possible if you never give up. We're not caught up in the old feud between him and Rossi. We just see the best rider there has ever been. Of course, not all riders have a positive view of Marquez. His conflict with Valentino Rossi in 2015 left deep wounds in the MotoGP world. Rossi accused Marquez of destroying our sport for his lack of respect. This feud divided fans and created a karma narrative that persists to this day, something Marquez himself recently rejected. Andrea Iannone, a former MotoGP rider, represents those who respect Marquez's talent but dislike his style. Nobody doubts his talent, but he's not my favorite because he lacks the magic that Rossi has. Iannone even criticized Marquez's riding style for pushing you wide and then hitting you, which he says damages his reputation. Yet even among his critics, nobody doubts Marquez's ability. They may not like him, but they cannot ignore him. The Rossi-Marquez feud is one of the greatest narratives in MotoGP history. Both riders have very different styles, very different personalities, and very different fan bases. Rossi is the charismatic icon, a rider loved by millions worldwide. Marquez is the cold, efficient racing machine, a rider feared and respected. But what's interesting is that this feud, which began as a personal conflict, has evolved into something bigger. It's a conflict between two eras, two philosophies, two ways of viewing the sport. Rossi represents an era where racing was about showmanship, about connection with fans, about charisma off the track. Marquez represents an era where racing is about data, about efficiency, about absolute dominance. And in this conflict, Marquez has emerged as the winner, at least in terms of on-track achievements. He has surpassed Rossi's win total, he has surpassed Rossi's pole positions, and he continues to close in on Rossi's world championship record. Interestingly, perceptions of Marquez have shifted significantly in recent years. Matt Burt noted that Marquez's journey back to the top has changed opinions, even among those who once doubted him. Once a divisive figure because of his conflict with Rossi, Marquez has now won over many former critics. Many people have become Marquez fans because they realize what he has been through and the sacrifices he has made. This isn't about money, said Bert. Marc has more money than he will ever know what to do with for the rest of his life. This is just about proving to nobody but himself what he is capable of. Am I still good enough? Can I still do it if my body is in relatively full working order? Am I still the man to beat in MotoGP? This transformation is one of the most fascinating aspects of Marquez's career. He started as a confident, even arrogant young man who wasn't afraid to challenge legends like Rossi. He became an antagonist to many fans, a symbol of a new generation that was disrespectful and too aggressive. But then the injury came, and in his struggle to return, Marquez showed vulnerability he had never displayed before. He showed that he is also human, that he also suffers, that he also has fears and doubts. And in that vulnerability, many people began to see him differently. They saw a rider who never gave up, who kept fighting even when everyone doubted him, who returned to the top after nearly losing everything. And as we have seen over the last few years, yes, he is. And for MotoGP fans, I hope it continues because this is a remarkable story. Marquez has transformed from antagonist to role model, from a rider who was hated to one who is admired, from a symbol of arrogance to a symbol of perseverance. One of the most unique perspectives on Marquez comes from his own younger brother, Alex Marquez. Being both a teammate and sibling to the best rider in the world is an unusual position. To be honest, fighting against Marc is one thing, beating him is another. It's something very different, said Alex. Alex has raced against Marc since they were children. He has seen firsthand how Marc developed into the dominant rider he is today, and he acknowledges that there is a significant difference between them. When I'm on track, I don't think about him as my brother. I think about him as another rider I have to beat. But when I see his data, when I see what he does, I realize he does things I cannot do. Alex also acknowledges that being Marc's younger brother has both advantages and disadvantages. The advantage is that he has access to data and insights that other riders don't have. The disadvantage is that he is always compared to his brother. People always say, "You're Marc Marquez's brother." And that's a lot of pressure. But I try not to think about it. I try to be the best rider I can be. But Alex also acknowledges that Marc has helped him develop as a rider. He always gives me advice, always helps me. He wants me to be a good rider, and that's something I appreciate. So what do all the MotoGP riders really think about Marc Marquez? The answer is complex and divided. It's a consensus that is itself divided. They may not like him, but nobody disrespects him. From Cal Crutchlow calling him a freak of nature, to Fabio Quartararo acknowledging him as the best in history, riders recognize that Marquez operates at a level they cannot reach. Mick Doohan said he's a different breed. Casey Stoner praised his reaction speed and intelligence. Pedro Acosta considers him an inspiration. Yes, there is criticism. There is resentment from some Rossi fans. Some consider his style too aggressive. But nobody doubts his talent, nobody doubts his achievements, and nobody doubts that he is one of the greatest riders ever to throw a leg over a motorcycle. Marquez has created a legacy that will endure long after he retires. He has changed the way riders ride, the way teams prepare bikes, the way fans view the sport. He may not be the most beloved rider in MotoGP history, but he may well be the most respected. And in a sport where respect must be earned with blood, sweat, and tears, that is a remarkable achievement. The world of MotoGP, above all else, is a stage where Marquez remains the lead actor. And as long as he is still racing, we will continue to witness the magic he creates on track. Marc Marquez is a phenomenon we may not see again for a very long time. He is a rare combination of natural talent, hard work, intelligence, and almost absurd courage. He has beaten everyone who has ever raced against him. He has overcome injuries that would have ended most careers. He has returned to the top when everyone doubted him. And most importantly, he has made his rivals admit they cannot beat him even before the race begins. That is what makes Marc Marquez so special. Not just because he wins, but because he makes everyone around him realize they are witnessing something extraordinary. As his brother Alex said, fighting against Marc isn't thing, beating him is another. It's something very different. And that is what makes Marc Marquez so special, not just because he wins, but because he makes his rivals acknowledge they cannot beat him even before the race begins. The world of MotoGP, above all else, is a stage where Marquez remains the lead actor.